So now we're going to move on to our panel discussion. I'm going to introduce our top 10 under 40 panelists. We published our third annual top 10 under 40 issue earlier this year, highlighting the accomplishments of young security professions across Canada. And we're delighted to be joined by a selection of those winners today. I'd like to introduce Victoria Graham, Senior Manager, Physical Security Operations and Crime Prevention, Global Security Investigations at TD Bank Group. We're joined by Sarah Miller, Operations Specialist, Treasurer for IAHS Ontario and Communications Chair for ACES Toronto. Also joined by Luana Pascu, a cybersecurity researcher, and Victoria Granova, who's the founder of Cyber Toronto, of the Cyber Toronto Conference. Thank you, everybody. Chaz was also due to join us, but unfortunately he was unable to, so we'll send Chaz our best. So let's get down to the questions. So the first question is, what challenges have you faced during the course of your career, and how did you overcome them? And maybe Victoria, do you want to go first on that one? Oh, sorry, Victoria Granova. I'm gonna have to use first names and last names on this one.
And you can't even say Victoria G because we're both Victoria G.
Yeah, I know.
No, this is excellent. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm very excited to chat today. So definitely some very interesting and intriguing, I guess, challenges that I faced throughout my career. Even when thinking back to the my very early career when I started out in cybersecurity and I was working for a mid-sized accounting firm, at that time, my biggest challenge was convincing management, so getting that management buy-in to develop a cybersecurity program. And that was a great first start in developing kind of my broader skill set. And then when I moved on into I did some red team project remediation. So I was on the remediation side for cybersecurity for a bit. And then after that, I was in incident management. And then most recently, I'm doing risk assessment in a big tech company. But the thing that kind of remained over time is, of course, the human element. That is the challenge that I've been trying to address, also currently in my research in Ryerson University as a part-time PhD student. That's going to be my focus, is looking at that cybersecurity and psychology, interdisciplinary kind of aspect. How do we strengthen the human in cybersecurity? So from a professional aspect, that's one of my biggest challenge, I think.
Okay. Thanks, Victoria. Let's go to Victoria. Same question.
So interesting that we went in this order, because Victoria obviously has a very strong background in the cybersecurity space. And so for me, I think the interesting thing that I've seen is when I started in the security industry a number of years ago, we were still using videotapes for many of our locations for CCTV recording. And so it's really been such a big shift in where we started back in, early to mid 2000s to where we are today, in concepts that we just couldn't really even comprehend and wrap our arms around at that point in time. So for me, the one thing that has been a challenge, is really, I think, maintaining a really good understanding of the threats within our industry, particularly from the technology and cybersecurity side. Really physical security and the technology we're using used to be standalone, and there was limited risk other than just complete failure of an old system. But we've really evolved into a place where there's so much interconnectivity and risk assigned with, to that. So I've really tried and somewhat struggled at times to be able to stay really in a good place in terms of being able to understand what those risks are. I've attended a lot of conferences, ISC West and the ASIS annual conference, subscribing to a lot of industry publications that provide guidance in that space. Looking at industry designations like my CPP, other things that will really give you a good baseline understanding, and then really just seeking out those in the cybersecurity space or highly technical space to ask those questions, have really strong relationships in those teams to just be able to ask whatever dumb question you may have that you don't know the answer to, not being afraid to kind of be a little bit vulnerable and ask those questions to be able to really understand what I think is probably one of the most significant emerging threats to the security industry.
Thanks, Victoria. Sarah, let's go to you next. What are some of the challenges that you faced over the course of your career, and how did you overcome them?
So both of the Victorias brought up some great points, and there are certain challenges that continue to recur. Threats change, hazards change, and you need to adopt new technology, new strategies to defeat those. But for myself, early in my career, one of my biggest challenges was probably figuring out what I wanted to do with my career. There are so many different avenues you can go down in security, and even if you choose cyber, you choose physical. Where in particular do you want to go with those? And eventually I chose physical. My favorite sector of all so far has been healthcare, and I'm really glad that I overcame that challenge and figured out where I wanted to go with my career. And I'm sure a lot of the other panelists have experienced this as well, but being young, being female, of course, everybody's seen a bit of sexism, everybody's seen a bit of ageism, and I would say it's a lot better now than it used to be. But those are definitely some challenges that I feel the rest of the panelists could identify with as well.
Thanks, Sarah. Let's go to Luana. What are some of the challenges you've come across during your career?
Thank you, Neil. I definitely agree with Sarah. You made some very good points. Personally, a little bit of context. I come from a place where there weren't many opportunities for people in general, not women. So I'm from Romania. Romania is a poor country in Eastern Europe. There weren't many opportunities there. You either had to be a teacher, a doctor, or an accountant. There really wasn't no room for anything else. So there was a limited number of opportunities that you could get into. Add a lack of trust, people projecting their fears onto you whenever you wanted to do something different. So this, for me, has led to imposter syndrome. And I think this is a problem that many in the industry are struggling with. I'm struggling with it. Maybe people are not talking about it enough, but it's real. And when does it stop?
Thanks, Luana. Slightly different tack then. What do you like most about working in your particular sector of the security industry? Sarah, you talked a little bit about that already, about how you enjoy the physical side of security and working in healthcare, but can you talk a bit more about what gets you up, what you enjoy about the security industry, what you've really learned about it since you've been a part of it?
Definitely. So the majority of my career, I've been working with security providers, so not one particular organization, and I love being able to help different facilities do different types of security. One day I might be dealing with loss prevention in Canada, and the next day I'm consulting on hospitals in Kenya. No 2 days are the same. And I love that I get to have that perspective working with security providers. It's always something different.
Thanks, Sarah. Victoria Graham, what do you like about what you do in security?
So I think banking is a very interesting sector that's quite different than a lot of others, just in terms of collaboration. So anybody that knows me knows I love to collaborate, and the banking industry is such a great place, with really formal avenues to be able to share information with other institutions and benchmark. We have formal organizations such as the Canadian Bankers Association that brings us together as an industry. But there is also a lot of sharing of information and benchmarking that happens with my contacts at the other organizations. Really, banking, I think, has some very specific threats that we face that maybe other, kind of verticals in the security industry don't have to deal with. And so, there really is a sense of common working together for the common good to be able to identify and, give early notification to threats or trends that we may be seeing that would be useful information to support our colleagues at the other banks as well. So it's a very collaborative industry, and I think it's a little bit different than a lot of other sectors where maybe there isn't that much sharing of information amongst competitors.
Thanks, Victoria. Luana, what do you like about what you do?
So for me in threat intelligence, I really love the detective work that I have to do. I've always loved puzzles. I've always had a thing for Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot, this type of literature. And I really love the idea of solving puzzles. So for me, cybersecurity is about solving puzzles, about investigating things. I love that 2 days are never the same. So something new always happens in cybersecurity. It's something that really keeps your mind sharp. You don't have time to get bored. I love that the learning never stops. So you always have to learn something new. You can't just say, I'm going to take this cert and I'm not going to do anything for the next 10 years. So you always have to keep reading, keep learning. This is why I love cybersecurity. And it's, at least in what I'm doing in threat intelligence, it's allowing me to combine my educational background because I don't come from a technical background. I'm just now starting to get more technical skills, but I have this background in humanities, in literature, foreign languages. I love history. I love political science. All this, I feel, is helping me really do a great job in cybersecurity. And yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, there's kind of this growing recognition that not all skills need to be those hard skills or need to come from a degree or a certification or something you read in a manual. People bring their different education background or different employment backgrounds of what they do. We've written or published a number of articles on that about bringing different aspects or looking for different traits in potential employees, especially since there's potentially a shortage of potential cybersecurity workforce as well.
Yes, and if I may add something, you can always learn the technical skills and the hard skills, but the passion, the motivation, the soft skills, they're really important in cybersecurity.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Luana. Victoria Granova, what do you enjoy about what you do in security?
So I will echo everything that has already been said. Cybersecurity is so exciting. It's no 2 days are exactly the same, which is amazing. It's constant learning. But I want to touch deeper on that, on Victoria's, what Victoria touched on, which is the information sharing aspect and the collaboration that we see that is growing within cybersecurity and security in general. For example, with what I'm also involved in IC Squared Toronto chapter. I'm currently the president of the chapter here in Toronto. So IC Squared being the cybersecurity certification body that does CSSP and so forth. But what was really cool was that last year I was able to establish a new conference for cybersecurity through collaboration between the different communities that exist within this space or this geographical space. So we had, IC Squared Toronto chapter, of course. Then we had ACES Toronto, we had Leading Cyber Ladies, OWASP Toronto. We all came together and created this free community focused conference. So that's, which is another method to share information and share expertise and do this so that information is more accessible. So this is just something that I'm also very excited about. And we, of course, will be back this year, December 1st and 2nd. But I really appreciate that about cybersecurity and security in general, is that that we are moving towards more collaboration and more sharing and becoming stronger as professions.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I think that was what surprised me most. I've been in this industry for a few years now, but what surprised me was the amount of collaboration that goes on behind the scenes. Companies you assume are competitors and are on paper competitors, but in the background they might be talking to each other because they have the same problems, right? They face the same threats, and if one succeeds, they all succeed in that capacity. So we have a number of people who have volunteered or be part of associations, security associations. Just tell us a bit more about what you do with those associations and what you see the benefits of being involved are. Victoria Graham, what do you think about that?
So I have always thought ASIS was an excellent organization and an avenue to be able to grow your network and really learn about, either at the local level, what's happening within your community from a security perspective, but then also internationally being able to really get a pulse on what's happening. I will say selfishly, I really have enjoyed a lot of the networking and a lot of events that I've had the opportunity to attend. So, some of the young professional events, some of the women in security events, and even things like Canada Night when, we attend the annual conferences. I really do believe that networking and having those connections and building that trust with individuals that work in either on kind of the customer and vendor side of things, or even from, just having really strong connections, because for example, we're looking at, deploying a very expensive piece of security equipment, and we know that, somebody that's down the road is already deploying that. And so we are able to build bridges and kind of collaborate to understand, elements of that. I really think that a lot of the benefit that I've gotten from ASIS and other similar organizations is really just that ability to build a very strong network. I have so many people that I've met through, organizations like that I can just pick up the phone and call if I have a question or need to benchmark something, and even some good friends that have come out of that as well.
Thanks, Victoria. Sarah, I know you're involved with several organizations, including IAHSS and ASIS. Can you tell me a bit about how you got involved with that and what benefits you've seen from that, and what your suggestions would be for people to get more involved?
Definitely. The first one I got associated with was IHOS, and I first got to know about it actually through Todd Milne. I've been bothering him for about 10 years, so networking has been a fantastic aspect of being involved. Right now, I'm the treasurer for the Ontario chapter. I can't say that accounting has ever been something I've had experience in, but now I do, so that's fantastic. Getting to know people, getting to know what other chapters are doing around the world, specifically in the US, we're involved very frequently, and I love to see what they're getting up to. With as well, right now I'm working as the communications committee chair, and again, gaining another new skill. I've never dealt with social media management, I've never dealt with websites or newsletters, and now I get to do that every week. So I'm gaining lots of new skills that otherwise I wouldn't have had access to. As well, if you're trying to move up in the security industry, I would say that a lot of keyholes are shaped like ASIS and IHOS designations. So the more that you can educate yourself, the more easily you can move up in the industry. But of course, number one for me, networking. I love all the people that I've met, and like others say, I can just pick up the phone if I have a question and call somebody from around the world. And I love that there's so many people who want to collaborate and work together on projects.
Yeah, that's always a tremendous benefit. My exposure to several security associations has led to some great relationships over the years, and it's very important for me to reach out and ask questions too as a journalist. And there's always people willing to answer them, and I appreciate that. Victoria Granova, tell us a bit about your involvement with associations. You have quite a history there too.
For sure. I became involved in the IC Squared Toronto chapter first as a attendee at the events a few years ago. Then I became as a director, and then I've been president for the past 2 years. This is my final year. And definitely with that brought a lot of networking, a lot of information sharing, and a lot of some new ideas that were developed. So that's that cross collaboration aspect is so cool. And we were able to then also leverage our relationships with ASIS or ASIS Toronto, with other community groups like OWASP and Needy Cyber Ladies, and upcoming WESIS as well, Women in Cybersecurity Ontario. And it's just so cool to see that collaboration and the benefits. And repeat what everyone said. It's all of the above, and so many friends have been made through that process.
How did you come to get involved in starting your own conference? Like that's a huge step and a colossal amount of work, but obviously it's something you feel passionate about. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Oh, for sure. So one of the things, well, first of all, I love conferences, love going to conferences, love being involved as speaker or as attendee. It's they're just fabulous. One of the things that I saw that was a bit of a opportunity in the market, you could say, is that I did not see a lot of conferences being created by community groups or by volunteer groups. So a lot of conferences do have sponsors and vendors, which are awesome, and lots of great talks and knowledge that comes through that. I wanted to see if we could do something that is driven by the community, and that's what sets this idea apart. And just wanted to see if it kind of piloted it last year, and it took off. So we're back again this year, and indefinitely. So it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, Victoria. That's great. Congratulations on the success with the show. Luana, I know you're involved with conferences too and organizing. So tell us a bit more about what you do and what you feel the benefit is of being involved with the professional associations and putting on conferences and things like that.
So Victoria, I'm very happy you mentioned volunteering, because this is exactly the case with B-Sides Montreal. So we started B-Sides Montreal because we really wanted to give back to the community. We wanted to bring the spirit of B-Sides Las Vegas to Montreal. It is a volunteer-run conference, so we are not looking to make any profit. We wanted to figure out a way to provide mentorship and to just help the community in Montreal. We wanted to get more students involved. We wanted to provide networking opportunities for people to get involved, to present their research. So I think this type of organizations and events, not only do they build a really great community, and you could also start wonderful friendships with people from around the world, but it really helps you learn more about the industry. You can talk to people about what they're doing. You can see if maybe you want to be in that type of role or not. You can learn what type of skills they needed to be in that role. You can find a mentor. But mentors can either make you or break you. So you also have to shop around and make sure that the mentor is right for you, because that relationship is going to end up being very important for your growth. So overall, I think this type of organizations and events, they're really great at helping you figure out what you want to do in cybersecurity as well, because you might change your mind. So as long as you go into this with an open mind, I think this type of events will expose you to so much research and information. When you leave, you might be saying, oh, maybe I don't want to do threat intelligence anymore. I'm going to get into digital forensics.
Thanks, Lana. What advice do you have for anyone starting out in the security industry? There's a lot of mobility in the marketplace right now, and things are changing quite rapidly during the last 18 months with COVID. But let's go to Sarah Miller. What do you have what advice would you give to somebody who's looking to get involved in security, who's maybe sort of in college now and looking for a job? What are your thoughts on first steps?
I would really suggest to do what you feel passionate about. Don't just chase a certain career path because you feel like it's more attention grabbing or it pays more. You only get to live once. Do something that you enjoy. Every time that I'm working in healthcare security doesn't feel like work. Luana also brought up a great point about mentors. I wouldn't be where I am without my mentors, and finding the right one for you is really important. Like she said, they can make or break you. So finding the right person is really important. I would say don't give up on education either. Always be improving yourself. There's always something new to learn, whether it is a hard skill or a soft skill. And like I said, just be yourself.
Sarah. Victoria Granova, advice for people starting out in the security business.
I second all the above. And also I wanted to mention that when you're approaching networking as a concept and finding mentors, go out with the intention of building relationships and making friends, and getting basically having an interchange of ideas, as opposed to having a goal in mind, as in like I want this person to help my career, or I want this person to be on the lookout for opportunities for me, something like that. The strongest longest-standing relationships and mentorships I've had were based purely on curiosity and friendship and looking forward. So and that resulted in some opportunities, which is just so cool. And I also would not be here today without my mentors, and I have quite a few of them, formal and informal. So yeah, you don't have to also settle just for one person to guide your career. Make as many friends as you can and you like. Stay curious.
That's good advice. Thanks, Victoria. Luana, advice for people who are just getting started.
I agree with everything that's been said. What I would like to add is there's more to cybersecurity than pen testing. So many people, when they think about cybersecurity, they think about pen testing and this type of activity. but there's so much other stuff that you can do. So indeed, try to find your passion in cybersecurity. The best piece of advice that was given to me was, when you read the news, what attracts you the most? What type of news? Is it the investigative, ransomware related type of articles, or is it the business type of articles? So would you want to go on the business side, or would you want to go on the tech side of cybersecurity? Now, if you choose to go on the tech side of cybersecurity, all I can say is don't give up, because it will be hard, especially if you don't come from a tech background. So you don't have necessarily a degree in computer science or previous experience in help desk or some type of networking job. Just don't give up, because it's doable. And there are so many great people out there who are willing to help you. You will be successful. You just need to be a little patient and always keep an open mind, because there may be things that you would like to do, but then once you really get into it, maybe it's boring, maybe it's not for you, and it's okay. You are allowed to change your mind. So keep an open mind, don't give up. And what was the other thing I said? I'm sorry, I forgot.
I think it's always important to keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Thanks, Luana. Victoria Graham, before we move on, what are your thoughts? So what advice do you have for people starting out?
So I think for me, just kind of, if I could give myself the advice from back when I started in my career, I would say there's no rush, and it's really something where when you're new in an industry and you're starting into your career, you kind of have this vision of, maybe in the first 2 years, you're going to just rise up the ranks and you're going to just move into a very senior role quite quickly. And really, I would say the experiences that I had early in my career have really helped shape my ability to actually manage programs as kind of a member of a senior management team. So, working as a security guard gives you really good perspective on how to run a corporate security program, because all of the things that happen at the kind of the base level of a team and the dynamics, and where people cut corners, those types of things. Being an operator in an operations center, a security operations center, those experiences can make for very effective leadership, because you can put yourself into the place of the individuals that are actually on the ground doing the work, and can allow you to better manage those teams and support them in a way that's much more realistic and grounded. So really, I would just say take those early experiences and really soak them in. Learn as much as you can while you're doing them, and don't think that there's any need to actually rush by and move to a more senior role in order to be able to be an effective leader. It's just sometimes not the case.
Thanks, Victoria. There's a couple of questions in the chat. I want to get to those, but I've got one more first. Work-life balance. What are your tips for work-life balance? Very important these days. Victoria Graham, can I go back to you for that one?
Oh, this is the worst one for me. So I will tell you, this is something I'm challenged with. I spent my wedding anniversary this year dealing with an incident the entire evening while my husband patiently waited for me to, kind of put that aside. I would say really having clear boundaries and understanding what you will and won't compromise on. In terms of what's really important to you. Sometimes things will, the nature of the industry we work in is that everything just doesn't stop outside of business hours. There will be times where things happen, and really understanding where your boundaries are is important, and really being able to, determine what's really an emergency and what's not. Some things are really cannot, wait until the next business day. And then there's other things that can, and being able to understand that you're just one individual that's part of a bigger team, and that we've done a really good job within my team of creating a lot of cross training and a lot of support from a really cooperative perspective. So if somebody has to attend to a personal event, whether good or bad, they can get the freedom to go and do that, knowing that somebody else will step in and support them. And I've definitely felt that support from my team. So To me, I think really that collaboration piece with your team and making sure that you have a solid plan for those times where you're not available. And then wherever possible, don't miss your wedding anniversary, because it's not always going to be good for things to do that. But I mean, really honestly, I would say I struggle in this space from time to time. This is something where it's easy to say, but walking the walk from sometimes can be challenging, just with the nature of what we do.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes your family makes those decisions for you, but Luana, how do you handle work-life balance?
I don't. So this is complicated because in cybersecurity, it really depends on the department that you work in. Criminals don't sleep, for example. So sometimes if you are doing infiltration and you are talking to an organized crime group, you might have to talk to them at 4 a.m. They're not going to work 9 to 5. If you're an incident response, you might have to work long shifts. It really depends on the line of work that you want to do in cybersecurity. I do want to point out that chronic stress is a major problem in the industry and it needs to be addressed. I think it also depends on companies and what kind of policies they have, how willing they are to help employees to have some sort of work balance. Mental health, I think, is really important, and I do sometimes try to figure out a way to balance it because I'm really bad at that. What I do is I just add tasks to my calendar. And I know it sounds really ridiculous, but I do. At 12:30, I have a meeting that says lunchtime. And for 30 minutes, I have lunch and I do something. I go eat on a bench, or I just do something else. I think it's really important to set some boundaries with myself, first of all, because I always have this tendency to want to do everything and to want to help everybody. So for me, the hardest it's been to say no in my line of work. Many people ask for help. It's a collaborative industry, right? Everything is based on teamwork. So sometimes it's really hard to say no. But to maintain work-life balance, I think it's really up to time management and how important other activities are for us at the end of the day. Do you want to go to the gym for an hour, or do you want to work on that report? Do you want to take a break, or do you want to keep working on that report? This is what I do, and I know I'm not the best example. I'm sorry. I wish I had better advice, but work-life balance is a challenge in cybersecurity.
No, for sure it is. But if you go to the gym, the report's still there when you get back. So go to the gym.
Yes.
Sarah, how do you handle work-life balance?
Well, there's similar challenges in physical security as well. Something can happen anytime. It's not restricted to just when you're at work. And a lot of times, maybe I'll have a one-off easy day, and then as soon as I get home, there's a site literally on fire. Mobile guards got in an accident. Somebody's in the hospital, so on and so forth. So it's important to be able to speak with your employer and figure out a way for you to be able to get that time back, because there are things that are time sensitive and you need to jump on. But say, have a reasonable expectation of, okay, I worked an extra 4 hours this evening, I'm going to work a half day tomorrow. As an example, it's really important that you take care of yourself too. If you're not rested and you're not mentally well, you're not going to do well at your job. You're going to miss things. You're not going to be able to engage with others well. So really important. Eat well, sleep, have a hobby that is not studying for your CPP or something like that. Do something separate. Like everyone else is saying, it's especially challenging in security because things are always happening. But if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your business or your business's needs.
Yeah, it is a challenge, especially for those people that are on call, have 24/7 jobs. But yeah, always important to make time for yourself. Victoria Granova, let's close out the work-life balance bit.
All right, no pressure. I really relate to a lot of the stories that you all shared. So I have some great slash well, really bad, I guess, stories about burnout. One of them happened when I was in incident management and being on call 24/7. That kind of sets you up for burnout if you're not if you don't set clear boundaries. So really knowing what your boundaries are and then enforcing them is something that I've learned to do, and I'm still working on it, but it's definitely something that is extremely important. So even in incident management, being on call 24/7 is a feat in itself. But back then, my priority was, if it's not an incident, then it's not urgent. If it's an incident, I'm on. If it's not an incident and someone says it's urgent anyway, it's not incident level worthy. So I'm going to go and take my break, or I'm going to go and, have dinner and whatever. So that was basically my criteria back then. I'm in risk assessment now, so it's a bit of a different environment. But here also, now having started my PhD program at the same time as working in big tech, it's been a lot of great communication with my team and great communication with my family, and making sure that, everything gets done. And, and I still have time to rest, because if I kill over from, exhaustion, then I'm useful to nobody and least of all to myself. So gotta look out for yourself and your health, and mental and physical, 100%.
Thanks, Victoria. So there's a couple of questions in the chat. Unfortunately, we won't get to all of them. I wish I'd scheduled some extra time for this panel. We got about 2 minutes, so I'm just going to go around and ask everybody, but there's one question in the chat I want to get to. What was the best piece of advice that you got when you began your career, and how is it still relevant for you in your career today? So can we go Luana, Victoria, Sarah? Luana.
Yeah, so the best piece of advice that I got was, don't be afraid to fail, because it's okay to fail. You will learn something. What's important is for you to get up really fast from that. Don't dwell on your failure. Learn something from it.
Thanks, Luana. Victoria Graham.
So mine's a little bit specific and based out of a very poor experience on my part. So, I was in a meeting with an executive, and they asked a question, and I just immediately responded. And I think the meeting did not necessarily go as well as we would have hoped in terms of getting their buy-in. And after the meeting, my leader at the time pulled me aside, and I had to write this down because I want to make sure I got it exactly right. She said, when speaking with an executive, if they ask you a question, take a moment and think about what they're really asking you. And that has been something that has carried through every senior leadership meeting I've attended since, and really taking the question and not just taking it at face value, because if somebody is a senior leader within your organization, they are likely thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead of even maybe where you're thinking. And so really thinking about what somebody is asking you before you answer can really make or break a conversation with a leader. So that's something that I've continued to go back to, and has been a great piece of advice that I got.
Thanks, Victoria. Victoria Granova.
Yes. So very briefly, it's don't underestimate your value and the skills that you already bring to the table. And this has carried me through job searches. It's carried me through imposter syndrome. It's been relevant ever since I got it.
Thanks, Victoria. And Sarah, you get to wrap us up.
Probably one of the biggest pieces of advice that I got was add more tools to your toolbox. The more tools you have, the more projects you can tackle. As a second one as well, don't be discouraged.
Very good. Important advice. Thank you. Thank you to all 4 of you for joining us today. Some great thoughts and great advice. Really appreciate you taking the time. I think it was well worth. It was well worth the half hour. I wish we had more time.